I'm not at war with my body. My body is a safe place. It is intelligent, and it is ultimately there to support me through life rather than an enemy that I have to battle against. These are some useful ingredients. It's very difficult to heal your body without these three things: a regulated nervous system, vitality, and a body that moves freely. Today, Marcus and I are going to talk more deeply about this. These form the three pillars in the way that we work with people, and I'd like to give you an overview of it. So we'll go straight into it. We'll start off with regulating the nervous system as the first pillar.
Yeah, it's one thing that is often overlooked, especially in terms of chronic tension, chronic pains, but also our overall stiff body feeling really limited in movement. It's just become aware of the unconscious stress hanging around in the body and give the body some space to regulate these things, because in its core the body knows exactly how to heal and how to regulate. But there were just things happening in our lifetime where we blocked this natural regulation process, and so it's very helpful to look at this into movement again and support the body in regeneration.
Yeah. And why we find this as a focal point important. So, like a common thing, like if we look at some symptoms that you might be experiencing. So, like when your nervous system is chronically dysregulated. So, if you do find yourself getting snapped into states of like fight, where it's sort of like that kind of impulse to, I'm under attack, essentially, like flight, like I've got to retreat, got to run away, find safety. I've got to freeze, like I'm in shock or a shutdown. Like they're really the core states. There's different other expressions of that. But if your body's been in that state for a while, like think of it as like like a vice has been tightening up on your system, like where there is intended to be like flow and movement inside the body, there has been gripping essentially. And there's different ways that that can manifest. So, commonly, like when we experience tightness, tension, stiffness, all of these things, the first go to is stretching, also other different modalities, yoga, Pilates. Not that any of these things are a problem, but if we're not addressing this underlying gripping of the system, essentially saying, I'm not safe, I'm under threat, I'm in danger. And then you put yourself in a situation where you're asking to stretch yourself, which is to go further than your current capacity. Well, that's another stressor on top of all of that unintegrated, undigested, unprocessed stress.
Yeah.
And so this is why it commonly doesn't work. And that's why we address it at this level, because it just causes more pain and more confusion and more hopelessness. And this is a big missing area in the field of movement, in the field of health and well-being. And it's complex. And we've done heaps of other videos talking further about how we can work with this. But that's one of the core things of, we need to get the body back to a point where, as you were saying before, Marcus, like unconscious factors, behavioral traits, thoughts, beliefs, emotional states, essentially to shift from a state of I'm under threat to I'm safe.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's often misunderstood with calming down.
Yeah. Which is just another layer of control over how you should be.
Yeah.
And this is a common thing, even in the field of nervous system regulation. If you've heard about this before and you've looked on Instagram, YouTube, it's a hot topic. There's all these ways, these techniques to regulate your nervous system. Most of them, though, are just trying to override, trying to control your state of being. Essentially, it's saying that there's something wrong with feeling this way. And
Yeah.
so, what we actually really need to do is to be able to face these feelings and build capacity in the face of these feelings so they're no longer wrong, and look at, when did they become wrong? Even stress itself, like there's been plenty of studies where they study people and they look at the effects of someone who perceives stress to be bad, and then the effects of their health and their lifespan is less. Their health is more compromised. And then people's whose perception of stress is, oh, this is a force of growth. This is there to help me. This is it. And they live longer, they're more effective. So the stressor is the same, but the perception of it is different. And
Yeah.
that's largely what we're working with, is like the perception of states of emotion, the perception of certain sensations, the perception of belief systems, the way we're wired, and essentially getting to a point where we're no longer placing a controlled idea of how we think we should be, how we think we should feel, because that keeps dysregulating ourselves. So we need to come back into alignment with essentially like a truth on, no, I'm not in danger being myself. No,
Yeah.
I'm not at war with my body. My body is a safe place. It is intelligent, and it is ultimately there to support me through life rather than an enemy that I have to battle against. These are some useful ingredients.
Yeah. Well said. And as Benny mentioned, we have heaps of videos talking about nervous system regulation in more detail. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can address that, that's a really useful place to be. And so the next area, the next pillar, and these are big areas and they can happen all at once. We navigate them in our programs as we work with people in coaching and all of that sort of stuff. But the next piece is rejuvenation. And this is important because what we're essentially doing is bringing in more like vitality into the system rather than putting extra stress on it. Needs to be more than what it is. We're essentially like giving to it rather than trying to take it away. And a common thing in fitness is like no pain, no gain. Like you get the gains by pushing and challenging yourself. And while that's great, if your body is out of balance, if you're experiencing chronic conditions, your body is compromised. The life force in your system is low. Your immunity is likely low. So it's kind of like you're balancing on this wire, and you only need just like a small thing to put the system out of balance. Happens in like cases of like chronic fatigue, chronic pain, flare-ups, very easily triggered. So in this case, like we're already overloaded, likely the system is already overloaded. So we need to explore gentle ways to not aggravate the system, but to nourish the system. You want to add some
Yeah.
more to that, Marcus?
Yeah. In a way, we can look at vitality just as the next step of regulation. So when we did some regulation work, then we can go into really soft movements which are enhancing the circulation in the body, and just do our best to support the system to stay regulated. So it's just building capacity in a regulated state of the body. And with this, becoming more resilient against stressors without putting extra stress into the system. And this is just enhancing the blood flow, circulation, breathing gets deeper, tissue can be better nourished than before, digestion will go up, and all those wonderful things which needs to happen so the body can do its work on its best in every moment.
Mm. A big part of this I find is like it's about efficiency in some ways.
Yeah,
We could look at it through this lens of, let's look at heart health, for example. A common way of looking at it is to do cardiovascular activity,
yeah,
which we'll talk about more in capacity as we talk about that pillar of capacity. What we're looking at here is not to try and push the output of the heart, because that's then going to put it further under stress. It's going to need to beat harder, right? What we want to do is improve the strength of the heart through it beating better. So, as an example, let's say you do a simple activity, standing meditation practice of standing and having your arms above the height of your head. Let's say you even move the hands as you do that. Now, what this is going to catalyze is it's basically saying continue to pump blood to the extremities. Now, as you're doing this, you're not like exciting the system too much. You're not agitating the system too much, but it's like this balance of you're in a relaxed state, yet you're encouraging internal processes to happen. So it doesn't like if you imagine like you've got a snow globe, it doesn't shake up the snow globe too much. So this is a really useful way of notice we're encouraging the vital systems of the body to continue to improve in their efficiency, like you were saying before, Marcus, like circulation of blood, lymph, all of these systems that are important to lubricate, nourish, heal the body without then causing too much of a breakdown effect, which then just requires more energy to then cause a rebuilding effect. Now, that's important and useful, but we need, like we need some bricks to
Yeah,
build a house.
we need a base where the body can come back to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So rather than exhausting the body, if the body is already exhausted, it doesn't make sense. Yet mentally, often though, we want to push further because we've equated that with like I'm doing something meaningful and this is how you get results. But there is a time and place and context for different practices. So rejuvenation is a really useful thing. And so far, if you can identify like what it is that you're doing, what it is that you really need, and focus on that, that can help you like be more sustainable in that journey. So if you identify, I am in a stage where I'm like, I acknowledge that I have a buildup of things in my system. I'm encouraging gentle movement of my joints. I'm starting to allow circulation to start to improve. I'm starting to bring in more life force into my body through my breath. Do that for a couple of months. Notice what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The funny thing, capacity will also go up without practicing capacity.
Yeah, yeah. I did notice that when I was practicing standing meditation for an extended period and extended stances like the horse stance and that sort of thing. And while I wasn't stressing my body that much, as soon as then I went to go and do things, like go on a challenging hike or go on a run, which I'm not a runner, but by all means, but the efficiency of the way that I did it, particularly hiking in general, because I was like there, I was able to relax in a, a moderate level of challenge for an extended period. It
Yeah.
was like everything became easy.
Yeah. It feels like magic sometimes for someone who's never experienced that before.
Yeah. So the third pillar is one that would probably be more familiar, which is cultivating strength and flexibility. This is where we can start to look at the bigger picture of the biomechanics of the body, the performance of the body, the fluidity of the way we move in a bigger context. And this is where we apply those other layers too. So imagine then you can start to explore strengthening practices, explore stretching practices, which come with a range of different sensations that may be uncomfortable. So once you're able to regulate yourself amidst all of these different sensations, so it's like, okay, I'm experiencing these different sensations and it's not a danger. I haven't damaged myself when I'm experiencing pain. And this is where it's really important. If you have had a background of pain, of injury, of chronic conditions, that's why those previous two pillars are just so valuable to start to create new positive associations with just connecting with your body, being in a body, experiencing all of the tapestry of emotions that flow through your body at any given point in time. And
Yeah.
so, would you like to talk more about strengthening, stretching, strength,
Yeah,
flexibility?
in a way, we are just using the basic principles in terms of building strength and range of movement. But one big difference I started to notice is with building those pillars before, you just become so efficient in training strength or flexibility. You know exactly where to go. You know exactly which millimeter is the one where the body is telling you, oh, yeah, this is the challenge. This is the thing we are looking for to put stress into the system so the body can adapt. So training time will decrease and the results will increase in a natural way because you know exactly where to go and what to do.
Mm,
And yeah, that's it's coming back to efficiency, just brought into the world of building capacity. You get a feeling when you're doing too much, you know exactly what to do to balancing out the system and not waiting. You know exactly, okay, now I go back to regulation after putting a strength practice into the system or stretching practice. You just come back to pillar one and allow the system to integrate, and regeneration will be enhanced. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, I think that's a really useful thing of like we're always in this balance of stimulus and recovery, and the longevity of our body, and also like an ongoing practice is based in that. You know, if you only have in your toolkit just practices that start to kind of milk the body of energy that demand something from you, then energy is pouring out, and eventually you can see that where that trajectory goes is like in terms of like yin and yang, we're out of balance. You know, there's too much yang in the system, and we start to then overload the system and burn out. And particularly then as we age, you know, there is a gradual decline in vitality in the system. And so then we're milking the system. So we need to continue to have ways to replenish and support the recovery as well. The way I kind of look at strength and flexibility is, you know, if you were to look at it in the context of like a car, what we're doing in building capacity is like we're adding cylinders. So if you think of like a V8 engine, in order to get power, you don't need to put your foot down as much. But you can, and it will really give you that kick. But imagine you're trying to go through life just on a four-cylinder engine, you know, and then you get to a big hill, you've really got to put your foot to the floor. So then things are a lot harder. But when you have this capacity that's greater than what you would need in daily life, that's when the experience of freedom starts to happen. So if we can build that capacity, if we build that capacity in the context of the nervous system, so it's like the way I handle stresses, the way I work through all of the stresses of life, you know, because life, yeah, it's stressful for anyone. But how we navigate those stresses is really the question. How we interpret and place meanings upon those stresses have massive effects on our health and our longevity. And then if we look at, we continue to give the body nourishment, life force to be able to support it to heal, to recuperate? And then are we continuing to build our capacity, the space, the stability, the flexibility? Then we have like this, we have greater buffer of capacity. So then life becomes a lot more graceful as we move through it. We can start to take on more challenges with less risk of injury because we're not redlining the system all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. And as you make it so far in this video, you see now we look at the body as a holistic thing. So training the body is for us very holistic. So we can see all the interceptions they are carrying over in every part of your life. And this is how we teach and how we practice and how
Mm,
we have practiced for many years now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, as we wrap up, I would just leave you with a couple of questions of, as you know, you might be accustomed with like I have a yoga practice or I have a morning routine or you know I do qigong, all of those things. They're wonderful. The question that I'll continue to reflect back to help you continue to make your practice more personalized with your actual deeper needs is like, what area am I focused on? At the moment, do I need more regulation for my nervous system? Like, am I giving that space to like be able to unblock my system? Is there things blocking my system, states of emotion, the way I interact with different sensations, a build-up of stresses that I haven't processed? Is there anything dysregulating me? Is that something that I need right now? And if that is, then you can start to, surrender to that process. Give yourself space to prioritize that. Do I need more vitality? You might be fit. You you can be fit without being healthy,
Yeah.
and you can be healthy without being vital, but vitality gives you all of them. So, do I need to improve my vitality in terms of that might be indicated with how am I sleeping? What's my sleep quality like? Do I have sustained levels of energy throughout the day, or do I like peak and trough? All of these sorts of things. Do I get a lot of fatigue? Do I get sick often? What's my level of immunity? These can be indications of a focus on development of your own vitality and rejuvenating your system. And do then I feel physically limited, in the way that I move? Do I feel stiff and tight? Once I've kind of addressed those things that are gripping, once I've got more vitality moving through my system, am I ready to start to expand my capacity in the way that I move? So you can combine them all together in one seamless practice, and that's what we do all the time. And
Yeah.
but identifying, having those pillars can be really useful, and that's why we built Movement Plus in that way. As you look at it, you'll see that the whole library is divided into those three pillars, and that's what we're there to guide you through that journey and that process to heal your body.
Yeah. This is what we do day in, day out.
Well, thanks for joining the journey with us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.